He just stuck to one point, smashing and digging around a lot. These are not the words you would ever expect to hear describing a typical buttoned-up playtesting session for a multi-million-dollar video game. But when the playtester is none other than the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, the creative force behind Mario, Zelda, and Donkey Kong himself, and the game is the most anticipated title for a brand new Nintendo console, these words paint a picture of utter, baffling chaos, or perhaps the quiet confidence of absolute genius. The developers of the new Nintendo Switch 2 blockbuster, Donkey Kong Bananza, watched in what must have been a state of suspended disbelief as the father of their iconic character seemingly ignored their meticulously crafted world. He wasn't playing the game, he was simply playing with it. Today, we peel back the layers of this now legendary story. We're going to explore exactly what Miyamoto was doing during his unusual playtest, how his seemingly random and repetitive actions were actually a masterclass in profound game design, and how his controversial, almost zen-like philosophy on what makes a video game fun might just be the secret ingredient to Nintendo's decades of unparalleled, industry-defining success. This isn't just a story about one game. It's a rare and revealing look into the mind that shaped modern gaming as we know it, a mind that operates on a completely different level. The stage for this peculiar event was the high-pressure development cycle of Donkey Kong Bananza, a title carrying the immense weight of an entire console launch on its broad, furry shoulders. This game was more than just a game. It was an ambassador for the Nintendo Switch 2. Billed as the new console's direct answer to the generation-defining masterpiece Super Mario Odyssey, this wasn't just another sequel. It was a bold statement of intent, a sprawling, ambitious, three-dimensional action-adventure platformer meticulously designed from the ground up to showcase the raw power and unique potential of Nintendo's new hardware. The game brought the iconic ape, first introduced as a barrel-tossing antagonist way back in 1981, roaring back into the spotlight. He was no longer a side character or a go-kart driver, but the undisputed star of his own epic. To mark the occasion, he was given a complete visual and mechanical makeover, designed to make him more expressive, powerful, and emotive than ever before. The world around him was equally ambitious. Vast, open-ended levels filled with countless secrets, and most importantly, highly destructible environments. This wasn't just set dressing. The development team, led by seasoned game director Kenta Motokura, was betting big on this feature. They wanted players to feel the immense, tactile power of Donkey Kong, to not just traverse the world, but to physically leave their mark on it by smashing, crashing, and digging through its very fabric. The technical risk was enormous. Such a feature is incredibly resource-intensive, and if implemented poorly, can lead to game-breaking bugs, unstable frame rates, and a feeling of jankiness that can ruin the entire experience. The hype, however, was immense, with many critics already penciling it in as a Game of the Year contender before it even hit the shelves on July 17, 2025. With expectations this stratospheric, every single detail had to be perfect. And who better to give the final, crucial seal of approval than the man who started it all? Enter Shigeru Miyamoto. When a figure of his stature, now a Nintendo fellow acting as a sort of creative guru, agrees to consult on your project, it's both an incredible honor and a moment of supreme, heart-stopping pressure. The development team was particularly anxious about their core mechanic, the destructible environments. Their biggest fear was that this feature, while flashy and exciting in trailers, might prove to be a hollow gimmick. They needed to ensure that the game was fundamentally, intrinsically fun, even without this key selling point. So they handed the controller to Miyamoto. This was the ultimate test. The air in the room must have been thick with unspoken tension as developers, artists, and programmers gathered to watch the master boot up their creation. But what happened next was not what anyone expected. As director Kenta Motokura later recounted in a pivotal interview with The Guardian, Miyamoto didn't play the game in any conventional sense. He didn't follow the guiding path. He didn't talk to the introductory non-player characters. He didn't complete the first simple objective. He didn't even seem remotely interested in exploring the beautifully crafted level laid out before him. Instead, Miyamoto navigated Donkey Kong to a single, unremarkable spot in the game world and just stayed there. For what must have felt like an eternity, he did nothing but test the absolute limits of the physics engine, relentlessly smashing the ground, digging up patches of dirt, and interacting with the same small patch of destructible terrain over and over and over again. Imagine the scene. A team of talented developers who had poured years of their lives into this project, watching the most famous game designer on the planet completely ignore their game to just play in the virtual mud. It would be so easy to interpret this as a silent, damning critique, a sign that the game's core loop was so unengaging that he had to invent his own, mind-numbingly repetitive fun. But that's not how Kenta Motokura and the Nintendo veterans on the team saw it. In fact, his reaction was the complete opposite. He was thrilled, he was relieved, he was vindicated. It was good to see him playing Donkey Kong Bananza that way, Motokura explained, a statement that likely shocked many. In that moment of seemingly bizarre, almost troll-like behavior, Miyamoto had given the team the most profound validation they could have ever hoped for. He had answered their biggest, most pressing question without saying a single word. The game was fun, even when you weren't progressing. The simple, tactile act of smashing and digging, the core physical interaction with the world, was inherently satisfying on its own. Miyamoto's obsessive focus on one spot proved that the team had successfully created a world where players could get lost in the joy of the moment, where the journey, and even the simple act of standing still and playing with the environment, was just as rewarding as reaching the destination. This single, unconventional playtest proved that the destructible environments weren't a gimmick, they were the very heart of the experience. It showed that players could be driven by pure curiosity about the world itself, not just the next checkpoint or objective marker. If you find this kind of deep, intuitive understanding of what makes a game truly special as fascinating as we do, go ahead and hit that like button to show your support. Miyamoto had effectively stress-tested the game's soul, not just its features, and found it to be robust, proving that the core Nintendo philosophy of prioritizing kankaku, or game feel, above all else was deeply embedded in Donkey Kong Bananza's DNA. This incident is a perfect window into what has been described as Miyamoto's sometimes controversial view on video games, a philosophy that might be the true secret to Nintendo's enduring magic. According to numerous former and current Nintendo designers, Miyamoto fundamentally believes that a game must be fun within the first few seconds of interaction. The story, the characters, the lore, the objectives, all of that is secondary, and in some cases, completely irrelevant at the start. The primary, most crucial element is the core gameplay mechanic. Does it feel good to simply move the character around the screen? Is the simple act of jumping, swinging, or in this case, smashing, intrinsically enjoyable? This philosophy has shaped every single one of Nintendo's biggest hits. Think about Super Mario 64. The first thing you do is run around a big open field, learning the joy of the triple jump. The game is fun before you even collect a single star. Think about Ocarina of Time and the revolutionary feel of Z-targeting. This philosophy has also been used to course-correct projects. Take the modern hit Splatoon, for example. During its early development, Miyamoto famously criticized the project heavily. His feedback forced the team to fundamentally rethink their approach, leading them back to the drawing board to perfect the core mechanic of shooting ink and swimming through it. The result was a global phenomenon that spawned a massive franchise. His contribution to Donkey Kong Bananza was perhaps less direct, but no less impactful. He wasn't there to redesign levels or rewrite dialogue. He was there to act as a living litmus test for the game's fundamental joy. By sticking to one spot and just digging, he was isolating the core mechanic and testing it in a pure vacuum. Other playtesters would naturally follow the intended path, providing invaluable feedback on level design, pacing, and progression. Miyamoto, however, instinctively took on the role of a different, more chaotic, and ultimately more modern kind of player. The one who gets distracted, the one who wants to see what happens if they just push against the walls of the simulation. This shows he is always thinking several steps ahead, not just about the player who follows the rules, but also about the player who will do everything in their power to break them. This deep, almost instinctual understanding of player psychology is what sets Nintendo's design ethos apart from so many of its competitors. Miyamoto's test wasn't just about a single feature. It was about embracing the unpredictable, beautiful chaos of play. It was a powerful recognition that not all players are motivated by quests, skill trees, and collectibles. Some find their joy in pure experimentation, in the sandbox nature of a virtual world, in emergent gameplay that the designers themselves may have never anticipated. By proving that Donkey Kong Bananza was fun even for a player who refused to play correctly, Miyamoto gave the development team the confidence to lean into the open-ended, emergent nature of their design. It allowed them to build a world that was not just a beautiful backdrop for a linear adventure, but a genuine, sprawling playground. This is likely a huge reason why the game, with its accessible Everyone 10+ rating, is being celebrated not just by hardcore Nintendo platforming fans, but by a much wider audience that spans generations. It appeals to that universal human desire to simply play, to explore, and to see what happens when you push the big red button. The overwhelmingly positive reception and sky-high scores aren't just because of clever level design or a charming story. They're a direct result of this core philosophy, a philosophy that was put to the ultimate test in that one very unusual play session. We're going to be covering all the biggest news, reviews, and deepest dives from the Nintendo Switch 2's launch and beyond, so if you want to stay ahead of the curve and not miss a thing, make sure you click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. In the end, the story of Shigeru Miyamoto's Donkey Kong Bananza playtest is so much more than just a quirky behind-the-scenes anecdote. It's a profound lesson in creative priorities that extends far beyond video games. It reveals that the true genius of Miyamoto lies not only in his ability to generate groundbreaking ideas, but also in his unique talent for deconstructing an experience down to its most essential, indivisible atom, the feeling of fun. While other developers and entire publishers might focus on creating complex systems, cinematic narratives, and photorealistic graphics, Miyamoto's approach serves as a powerful reminder that if it doesn't feel good to simply press the buttons and interact with the world, the entire multi-million-dollar experience is built on a fragile, hollow foundation. His unorthodox method wasn't a sign of boredom or a passive-aggressive criticism. It was the ultimate, unspoken seal of approval. He confirmed that Kenta Motakura and his team hadn't just built a rigid path for players to follow. They had built a vibrant world that was a joy to simply exist and play within. And in the vast, often overwrought landscape of modern interactive entertainment, that simple, pure, unadulterated sense of play is perhaps the most powerful and most valuable feature